I had a discussion with someone just yesterday. It was a very interesting discussion. We were talking about saving for retirement. And one of the things I noted in discussing with them is they go to lunch every single day, 5 days a week. And that lunch costs them about $10 a day average. So that's $50 a week they're spending on lunch. And they're doing that 50 weeks a year. That's $2,500.
Yeah.
And the first thing we talked about was, what would it be like if you brought your lunch instead of went out and spent $10 every, or if you just brought your lunch 3 times a week? What would that be like? What would that feel like? And it was a really interesting discussion. And she said, I think I'm going to try that, because I'm going to take that money and put it aside in a whole different account. And I'm going to have a savings account based on just not going out for lunch.
So it sounds like success is doing some pretty ordinary things better and doing them right.
That's the case. I have a Starbucks addiction, coffee shop addiction. I'm in coffee shops 7 days a week, and that's really only because they're not 8 days.
Okay.
If there were 8 days, I'd be there. In fact, I tell people it's weird. My car knows how to get there on its own. I just get in the car, it drives there, and I say, wow, I'm at Starbucks or other coffee shops. And it's really bizarre, but that's what happens. I'm in the coffee shop, and I look, and there are people there, like myself, that are there every single day. I don't know how well they do financially. I have no idea. But the last time I was there, Jim, there were probably 10 people in line ahead of me, and 8 of them used some form of credit.
Really? At a Starbucks?
At a Starbucks. And the guy that's behind the counter, of course, knows me. Dan and I have a conversation. I said, Dan, how many of those people use credit and how many use debit? And he said, why do you want to know that? And I said, because I'm doing a survey. And he said, what kind of survey? I said, well, I'll tell you after you tell me the answer. He said, well, 2 use debit and 6 use credit. And I said, okay. And then he said, okay, why do you want to know? And I said, well, what's the average cost? He said, well, probably $4, maybe $5. And I said, all right.
Sure.
He said, so what's the deal? And I said, well, the deal is this. He said, 60% of the population has credit card debt, and 60% of the people who just bought from you have credit card debt. I said, so if you do the math, some of those people have quite a balance on their credit card, and yet here they are buying another coffee. And if you really do the math and you think what they're paying on the interest and what's happening, that is one very expensive cup of coffee. And he said, man, don't tell anyone. And I said, I won't, I promise.
Yeah.
So isn't that interesting?
It's amazing.
But that's where we are, Jim. I mean, we're just so over the top with this. And again, you're talking to a guy that owns stock in Starbucks. I like Starbucks, but the point is there are people that should be paying cash at Starbucks. And that's another thing. People don't pay cash anymore. I go out to dinner, and they say, we don't take credit cards, and they look at me like they have deer in headlights. They say, what do we do? And I said, cash? They said, well, we don't have any. We don't carry cash.
Really?
I said, you have no cash on? I said, no. We haven't had cash for years. And I said, that is so bizarre. I mean, I am so geared up to carrying cash. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. Well, not maybe. Okay, I am old-fashioned. But cash makes sense. And the other thing about cash is if you have cash and no credit card, which is how it used to be, it's really hard to overspend. Because after you're done spending your cash, what do you use? Nothing. And credit cards, just throw the plastic on the table. Huge problem. So,
Great.
yeah, kind of crazy.
Great.